Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Melissa Ward. I am a business owner, a wife, a mother, and a Rotarian in Saratoga County, New York. I joined Rotary to help change the world, and I stay in Rotary because it changed me. I have had the opportunity to meet some amazing people through Rotary, and I'd like to introduce you to some of them right now. So Doug Ford is the polio chair for our upstate New York district 7190. He joined the Ballston Spa Rotary Club in 1996, and he shares Rotary with his friends and family. He's got a great wife. I love her. Louise Rourke contracted polio at 4 months old. She's a native in Queensbury. And this polio survivor shares her inspirational story in a new book called By the Water, which is what we're going to be talking about today. Mike McGovern is the chair of the End Polio Now Committee since 2014. He is a member of the Rotary Club of South Portland, Cape Elizabeth since 1986. And coincidentally, he joined Rotary when they just started raising money for polio. So welcome, everybody. I am so glad that you guys are here. As some of you may know, part of the reason why we are doing this is to get some attention for Louise's new book, which again, we are going to be talking about today, along with a bunch of other things. But first, I would like Mike to start off, tell us a little bit more about polio and Rotary's role in polio, and take it away, Mike.
Thank you very much, Melissa. Wonderful to be with you today, and particularly Louise, to congratulate her on this new book. I've had a chance to read it, and it's just wonderful, and I recommend it highly. And it's benefiting polio, which thank you, Louise. That's just wonderful. Much appreciated. Polio, is a disease that was once dreaded in the United States and around the world. It, until the Jonas Salk came out with the vaccine in 1955. In fact, it was the number 2 dread in the United States after nuclear war. So, a lot of folks have trouble understanding just how big polio was and what a factor it was in so many people's lives. Well, in 1979, Rotary worked in the Philippines with the Rotarians there and ended polio in the Philippines. And Rotarians, having seen that success, said, this isn't right. There's still 350,000 kids in the world who get polio. And we need to stop that. We can do that. Let's raise some money. Let's work with some partners. And as a result of that, we've gone from 350,000 cases a year to under 200 cases the last 5 years. There were 125 countries where there was polio back then, and there's now 2, Pakistan and Afghanistan. This has come about because Rotarians have been very generous to ending polio. We have 36,000 clubs now around the world. We look for every one of them to support it. And we also, look toward the other groups that we work with, which includes the World Health Organization, UNICEF, the CDC, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance. It's just a tremendous success of an organization working together and seeing the passion, the commitment, and the perseverance of a group like Rotary. It also is an indicator for our COVID experience, the importance of people coming to work together, to see a problem that we all have, and to find a way through to the end of it. We all hope that COVID is ended a lot faster than polio, but we can see the end, and that's something Rotarians ought to be proud of. And it's why books such as Louise's are so important in helping to show what polio is, what polio was, and also the fact that people can work together to end it. So it's really great to be with you. So Louise, I have a question for you. You contracted polio, as mentioned, when you were 4 months old. Can you tell us how has it impacted your life, first as a young child and even as an adult?
Well, sure. Thank you so much, first of all, to all of you for the opportunity to talk with you today. Um, First, I would correct you in that I developed the polio a little bit older. I was 6 months old, not 4 months. Um, but I believe, I've been told, I was the youngest victim of polio in New York State at the time. This was in 1954. So I just missed the vaccine. And the way it affected me was it caused paralysis of my right leg, complete paralysis, so that I couldn't bear weight without collapsing. So I eventually learned to walk with a tiny little brace and the use of parallel bars. So I'm very grateful that I was as young as I was when I developed the paralysis and was affected by the virus, because I didn't have to adjust to the loss of a limb or a new diagnosis, as so many others in the world have had to do so. That being said, I did endure many challenges. Some of them, of course, are detailed in my book. Early on, there were a lot of surgeries. And again, I have to say how grateful I am for the healthcare that we have in this country. Not only the healthcare, but the fact that my parents were able to find people in New York City, actually, that could help with bracing. And actually, many of my surgeries were also performed down in New York City. So I guess I would say, for those of you watching today who haven't seen me walk, I should explain that you would immediately notice a very significant and painful looking whole body limp when I walk. So throughout my life, as you might imagine, I've been stared at and teased and mocked. But I think that probably is why I developed what some people refer to as a polio personality. I'm fiercely independent. I never wanted to be defined by being disabled. I like to refer to disability in myself and others, not so much as disability, but as being differently abled. Instead, I think, like many of us, perhaps all of us, we want to feel as though we belong, as though we fit in somewhere, and we want to be respected for who we are and not prematurely judged by how we look or discriminated against by the way we look or any kind of label being applied to us. So this is where I really have to talk about my family. My loving husband, John, was able to look beyond my awkward limp and fell in love with me for the person I am on the inside. I'm also very, very proud of our sons, Sean and Devin, and also Devin's wife, Rachel. And I might add here that all three of them contributed to the book. So you can read about their contributions in the book. Professionally, the way it impacted me, I think it's probably how it shaped my interest in helping others. I first became a teacher in South Glens Falls School District, which is a school district here in upstate New York. And later I became a school social worker in Ballston Spa school system, also a local school system. And I worked a lot with children who had difficulties, families where difficulties were happening. And I posted a sign in my office that I refer to often, and that's, no one can do everything, but everyone can do something. I think, Doug, you're muted there.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Well, that I'm sure Melissa can kind of edit that stuff out, but that kind of brings us to a point where I actually met Louise, and I had a Rotarian, Don McPherson from Saratoga Club, reached out to me one day and said, "Hey, I have this lady that's a polio survivor. She's 60, I think 62 at the time, not to give away your age, Louise.
No, I was 64.
64 at the time, and she wants to swim the length of Lake George on behalf of Rotary. What do you think?" And I immediately had some suspicions. This didn't really sound legit to me, but I was intrigued enough to ask to meet Louise. I can tell you it's been a friendship since the day I met her, and she has continued to inspire me and challenge me as the polio chair for sure. And so that led to the swim. She indeed did want to swim the length of Lake George, and we started having conversations about that. And I'll let Louise pick up from there and kind of tell us how that all came about.
Well, thanks, Doug. I guess I'd start by saying it's really difficult for me to overstate the importance of swimming in my life, specifically in the pristine waters of Lake George. I feel free in the water, and I get the needed exercise to stay healthy. And the lake is just deeply embedded in my very being. I've been swimming every summer of my life in Lake George. But in terms of why this challenge, I really have to talk about three things that happened over the course of my life. And I guess I would start by telling you about my first heroine. Her name was Diane Struble. And when I was a 4-year-old little girl, standing on my family's dock on Lake George, I learned about this woman named Diane Struble, who was swimming the entire length of Lake George by herself. And thousands of people were coming to Lake George to cheer her on and to see if she could accomplish this feat. And she was beautiful. She was on TV, she was interviewed. I just was awed because I loved the water. And I think that planted a seed in my mind of how wonderful it would be if I could do something like that. But that was just a seed planted, or a ripple in the water, if you will. I guess I'd have to fast forward to 2007, when another thing happened that kind of led eventually to why I took on this challenge. In 2007, my husband and I traveled to Nepal, where both of our sons had done volunteer work. And Devin was with Engineers Without Borders, and he had been working with villagers to filter their water so that they could have a safe water source. And I guess it was stunning to me to realize how fortunate we are in this country, across our country, not just here in upstate New York, but to have safe water to drink. And really guiltily, I mused about the stunningly beautiful Lake George, which is 32 miles long, and it's potable water, and I swim in it every summer. So that struck me. And the other thing that happened in Nepal is, for the first time, I saw people like myself with shriveled up limbs, and they were crawling to get around. Some of them, they had sandals or flip-flops on their hands to try to get around. And they had horrible deformities that were caused by polio and hadn't had the benefit of the healthcare that I've had and the bracing that has allowed me to walk. So I think when I came back from that, I wasn't yet retired as a school social worker, but it again kind of added another ripple to that desire of mine to do something to help other people in the world. And the third thing that happened was meeting Bridget Simpson. Bridget is the woman who did this swim to end polio with me. It was a relay. I did not swim the whole length of the lake by myself, only 16 and plus miles of it in a relay. But Bridget is my soulmate when it comes to swimming. My husband and I are very fortunate to have a place, a summer home up in Ticonderoga, New York. And there was in 2017, there was a little article in the local paper about this woman from Ticonderoga named Bridget Simpson, who was going to swim the lake that year. And because I swim long distance along the shoreline, as I said, every summer, I just thought how awesome it would be if I could ever meet her. Well, one day after her swim in the fall, I saw a group of people swimming nearby where our home is and went over to see who they were. And sure enough, Bridget was one of them. And Bridget was really the link. She talked about how wonderful it was for her to swim to Diane's Rock. And I knew what Diane's Rock was, but many people have never heard of Diane's Rock. It's a monument to Diane Struble, that first heroine of mine that's up at the northern end of Lake George. So I was all excited that she knew about Diane Struble. And ultimately it was Bridget that awakened that ripple of a dream in me to swim the lake. She gave a talk later in the fall after her swim at the Northern Lake George Rotary Club up in Silver Bay. And that reminded me of all that Rotary is doing to eradicate polio around the world. So I started thinking, with Bridget's nudging, she said, you know, Louise, you could swim the lake too. And I had the desire, but I wasn't positive that I could do the whole lake by myself. I was 64 years old, and that was be a pretty daunting challenge. But she said, well, how about if we did it in a relay? Well, that really intrigued me. And it was then that I decided, okay, I'll start to train, and maybe, just maybe, I would do this. So it was later in the spring of 2018 that I posed the idea of doing a swim to raise money to eradicate polio around the world, but also to bring some awareness of water issues and the importance of clean water. I know that Rotary also has that as one of your goals, one of Rotary's concentrations around the world. So I approached Don McPherson that you referred to, Doug, a man in Saratoga, belongs to the Rotary Club in Saratoga, and said, hey, what do you think about this idea? And, you know, Don could have very easily said, you know, I don't know, Louise, but he was so enthusiastic and scared me a bit, honestly, because he immediately said, well, I think it's a great idea to pose to the whole district. And I said, what do you mean the whole district? And he said, well, all the Rotary clubs from the Capital District area in Albany all the way up to Northern Lake George. And it's like, whoa. So that's when he introduced me to you, Doug, and things took off from there. I think we have a very special video to share with you folks today. But before Melissa cues that up, I just wanted to say a little bit about teamwork. You know, that polio personality of mine, that fierce independence, it's a good thing, but it's also can be a bad thing in the sense of a lot of us need to learn the lesson, and I think I need to learn it over and over again, that many times it's okay to ask for help. And I certainly could never have accomplished this goal without asking for help. So many people helped to accomplish the goal. So at the beginning of this video, you'll see a lot of photographs of and video of us training. I had to put out an email to lots of people to see how many people might be willing to kayak and paddle along beside me. I had to make sure that my husband was behind us and certainly agreed to be the captain of our boat and motored along beside both Bridget and I as we were swimming. And so you'll see a lot of paddlers and a lot of our training sessions first. And I think I'll stop there and have Melissa cue it up. And I see that it is ready. Thank you, Melissa.
she goes, guys.
We're so proud of you.
You go, girl.
And we're off.
You show 'em how it's done. Woo!
I still get goosebumps watching that video. What a special morning. What a special day. That event, I think, is we mentioned early on, raised over $120,000 for polio eradication. But that wasn't going to be the end of Louise's generosity. Almost immediately, she started talking about writing a book. And, you know, and that, just like the dream of swimming the lake, as soon as she gets an idea in her head, there's no stopping her. And soon enough, the book was underway. And the book is now published and is available. But I'd like Louise to kind of talk about the book and how we got to where we are.
Well, thanks, Doug. I really have to give a lot of credit here to the Lake George Historical Association. A Rotarian came to that celebratory dinner when Bridget and I were honored by Rotary Club after the swim. And that Rotarian, I believe, is with us today, Laura Lee, who also works at the museum. And I subsequently met Diane Strubel's daughter, Gwen Rippon, and it was Lisa Adamson, the curator at the Lake George Historical Association, who first proposed the idea of Gwen and I writing a book together to support the exhibit. But we realized very quickly that we really had enough material for 2 books. So my book is actually the second in the series that's entitled Called by the Water. Gwen's book is the first one, and It's entitled Called by the Water When Diane Struble Swam Lake George. So again, I owe a lot of thanks to many, many people for helping me get this book to publication. So I'm very proud of the results. Judith Adamson was the excellent designer. My son Sean did the cover photo. He went for a hike up to the top of Rogers Rock at the northern end of Lake George and took that beautiful photograph that's on the cover. So lots and lots of people to thank, including Dr. Joel Goodman, whom you may have noticed put together that video, but also really helped me navigate through the world of publishing a book. So thank you to many people.
So the book is available in multiple sources. I think Melissa may have put the link up earlier. We can share that again, but it is available through the District 7190 website. It's also available through Northshire Bookstore. It's also available through Amazon. And, you know, we're hoping that we can get the word out. This is not just for local Rotarians. This is something that should be appealing to Rotarians all over the United States and beyond. So we can get the story out. With that being said, Mike, we have a question for you. And that question is, what more can Rotary and other organizations do to bring us to the home stretch with polio? We're under 200 cases, but we got to get to the finish line.
You know, Doug, I think one thing we can do is to allow ourselves to be inspired by people like Louise. Louise has just done a great job with, her swim and then doing this book. Unfortunately, maybe not to the degree that Louise has done, but there are a lot of people around this world who have that similar feeling and that similar passion for eradicating polio. And, she has inspired me. Those other folks have inspired me. The other thing she said, during her comments earlier was that, she learned never to be afraid to ask for help. And, that's true for, people who got polio and have dealt with it and have dealt with some of the consequences of it, but also, some of the opportunities of it. But it's also true for those of us in Rotary who, have been working for years to eradicate polio. We weren't afraid to ask the World Health Organization. We weren't afraid to ask UNICEF. And without those other groups, we couldn't have done it alone. We're in all these countries around the world, but we're not medical experts, at least most of us aren't. And, in asking for help, asking for other people to participate, it's not only for eradicating polio, but it's true for so many other things. And, and frankly, it's not to be afraid to ask for money. When we're trying to provide polio drops to 450 million children a year, it's an expensive proposition. If you look at all the expenses added in, it's $900 million a year. So, Rotary, we asked Rotarians for help, but we also, we asked Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they came forward, and we asked the countries of the world. And, Rotary now is the third largest funder of eradicating polio after the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the US government. But, it's just amazing, whether it's swimming Lake George or eating Dunkin' Donuts, which some people did, raised over, lots of money just a few months ago by, getting people to do purple pinky. They paint your fingernail purple when you get the polio drops. But it's all of this. So, Rotary, in the end, to get this done, we need to encourage every mother, every father in the areas where polio still is, in the areas where are high risk, to get those polio drops into the mouths. And, that's what this is all about. And I think, we see in this COVID era, the need to convince people to take vaccines. And we've seen with polio, in that case, the vaccine works. It's done amazing things And thank goodness, Louise, it was a little more than 60 years ago, she came down with polio. And, thank goodness here in the United States, we don't see people coming down with polio. That's because we have been inspired. We haven't been afraid to ask. The scientific knowledge has been kept up, and because people have continued to contribute. So again, I really congratulate Louise on her swim, on writing this book, and for maintaining the passion of knowing she can make a difference. That's what Rotarians do. But Louise has really showed us all how to do it.
Thank you.
Melissa, how are we running on time? Are we okay?
We are. We actually have one question from an attendee. Janice and Andy write, what does Mike think the impact of COVID-19 will be on the goal to eradicate polio due to the delay of vaccination programs, etc.?
Thank you for that question. When COVID really began to hit in the beginning of March 2020, we stopped house-to-house immunizations worldwide for polio. That stayed in place for 3 or 4 months, and it hasn't totally come back everywhere. But over that time, we geared up. We got the personal protective equipment. We did all of the training. We did a lot of public information as well, and we were able to once again begin immunizations again. Those have been ongoing on the day that today. There's actually some more immunizations going on in Pakistan. So the overall impact seems to terrible for everyone with COVID, obviously, but for polio, it was a temporary setback, and I think, but also it's also sadly an opportunity. People know an awful lot more about vaccines. They know an awful lot more about viruses, and the example of polio is one that I think can help with COVID. When people look at the history of what's been done with polio, they'll see that there's a benefit to getting the vaccines that are necessary to prevent vaccine preventable diseases such as COVID. So I'm cautiously optimistic. Yeah, it was a setback for polio, but I think we're on the road again. I'm seeing some positive numbers come out of Pakistan, and I'm looking forward to this being a successful end of eradicating polio.
Excellent.
Thank you, Mike. I just want to mention a quote actually that you contributed to the book, and I thank you for this. It's one that I hadn't heard before, and it comes from Jonas Salk. I'm sure you remember this. And he said, "Hope lies in dreams, in imagination, and in the courage of those who dare to make dreams into reality." And I think as long as we all have hope, and as long as we stay the course and stay focused, I know we all get fatigued, especially right now with coronavirus, but I think as long as we have hope, we can go forward.
We do.
So one more question. Once we eradicate polio, will children still need to be vaccinated? And how many years will the effort continue to make sure it does not come back?
Yeah, it's there are different steps with certifying diseases as gone. In the case of polio, what has happened is most of the world has now been certified as polio free of the wild polio virus. It does not include something called the Eastern Mediterranean region, which includes Pakistan and Afghanistan. But once that area is certified, we'll still need to immunize children for about 6 years. We have, some shedding that will go on. There'll still be some remnants of what they call vaccine-derived cases, and it'll take a while for all of those to die out. But Rotary is committed to the point of certification, and even then, even though we're not going to continue to raise money for from Rotarians thereafter, we're still going to advocate to the governments of the world to sustain the polio-free world. That's very important, and we continue to advocate now for improving health systems, improving routine immunizations, and all the things that will be in place to make sure that once the world is certified as polio-free, that it stays polio-free. It'll be a great day for the world when that happens.
Indeed it will. Any final thoughts from our panelists?
I have a few, Melissa. I just wanted to say that even when we want to live in our own bubble, as we're forced to do right now, especially with the coronavirus, to protect ourselves, I think it's in protecting ourselves that we're also protecting others, particularly around the world. Viruses are only a plane ride away. So I hope that we as a people and just never stop caring about others around the world in the months and the years ahead. I hope that the calling that remains, to protect children and adults with vaccinations and to protect our waters. And I guess I'm hoping that my book will be an inspiration to others to follow their hearts and pursue their dreams regardless of their age or being differently abled. And again, I just wanted to thank all of you for being with us today.
Well, I don't, that's a hard one to top, Louise. I'm glad that everybody is getting to meet you and to be inspired as I was. I especially thank Mike for coming today. I know you got a very busy schedule, and I know it was difficult to carve out time to be here, but we appreciate you being here and helping us shed Louise's story, share Louise's story, and help to raise some more money through the book sales to help with our cause. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I just want to join in thanking all of you for bringing attention to ending polio. And, it is going to happen. It's going to happen because of all of you and so many others. So thank you, Louise. And again, congratulations on the book. When this is over, I'm going to go online and order some more books. And I hope others do as well. So thank you.
So before we conclude for today, I just want to once again share where you can get Louise's book. It is go rotary7190gives.org/called-to-water. And not only can you buy the book, but you can get an autographed copy of the book, or you can get an autographed copy of the book with an End Polio Now shirt and face mask. All of the proceeds from this book are going towards eradicating polio. So if you're looking for a good read and something deeply inspirational, may I suggest that you purchase Called by the Water. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I hope that you have been as inspired as I have, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.